700 lifeboat passengers watched the RMS Titanic disappear. Around them, swimmers struggled in the icy water.
We were 9 hours in the lifeboat. We had no water, nothing to eat, and we just sat there. We had to get right away because of the suction, you see. Her lights sort of didn't all go out, but disappeared one at a time in the water until she got to the top, to the boilers, and there was a sort of explosion. I turned my head away. I wouldn't look to see her go down. And you could hear the screams of the people on the ship, It was really terrible.
By the grace of God, I came across a lifeboat and they pulled me in. Well, I sat on a seat, and who should I be sat next to but Mrs. Clark, the girl I'd put into a lifeboat. And she said, well, the first thing she said, "Have you seen my husband?" So I said, "No, I haven't, but I expect he'll be all right."
The sea was perfectly smooth when we left the ship. Every star in the heavens was visible, but there was no moon. So it was dark. And, everything was very peaceful. No wind. And no moon. Stars. Smooth water. Until after about an hour the wind got up and there was a little sea. For a long time we didn't move the boat when we laid off on the starboard side. You could see by the arrangements of the lights, all the lights were burning, and you could see that she was going down. You could see that her stern was getting pretty low in the water. She was certainly going down, there was no doubt about it then. And we got away clear of the ship, and we just laid on the oars until eventually they realized that she'd gone, and we heard all the screams. We couldn't do anything. And the screams went on for some considerable time. I can't remember the time when she sank, but it was in the early hours.
The biggest ship in the world slipped beneath the surface of the Atlantic Ocean at 2:15 a.m. on the 15th of April, 1912. The Cunard Line's Carpathia was sailing full steam ahead towards the Titanic's lifeboats, but it would be another 2 hours before she arrived.
Some little time later, I found that the senior wireless operator was standing just behind me. And from the wireless messages he told me he'd received from different ships, I figured up in my mind that the Cunard liner, Carpathia, one that he said was coming to our rescue, should be up about daylight.
Well, we sat there, about 20 of us, right through the night. Nothing to do, just living in hopes, and, someone started to curse and shout further down on the ship. And someone said it was no time for swearing, it was time to say your prayers.
Many died from cold during the night, the wireless operator amongst them. And a mighty long time it seemed before daylight broke, standing wet through and up to our knees in icy water on that upturned boat. Frankly, I don't think many of us expected to see daylight.
Anyway, we sat there through the night, and as dawn came, more or less, the ships came into sight. Someone said, "There's a ship." I said, "There's two." Well, it turned out that one was the ship, and the other was the iceberg, alongside of each other. It was the Carpathia come to take us off.
At full daylight, there was the Carpathia steaming toward us. I needn't say just what sort of a welcome sight it was either. Cruising slowly round, she collected the boats one by one. Mine, I know, was loaded down to the gunwales, and no easy job to keep afloat in the rising sea. At last, everyone was safely on board, and with the 700-odd survivors of that night, she turned away from that tragic spot and headed for New York.
As you know, the Carpathia picked us up the next morning, and everybody was very, very kind to us on board that ship. People were looking round to see if the people they'd left behind had by any chance been picked up by another boat or something. But no one was ever found.
After we were picked up on the Carpathia, my mother came to me because every time a lifeboat came, I went to see if my father was on it, you see, and he wasn't. And eventually my mother turned round and said to me, "You've lost your father, and you won't see your father any more."